in Detroit, the Detroit Achievement Academy, which serves students from K through 8, and Detroit Prep, which serves students from K through 6. The schools aim to develop the next generation of community leaders. And then, mid-pandemic, Kyle went back to her traditional entrepreneurial roots and founded a new company, Louie, a kitchenware company devoted to using their business to create good in the world. So, from philosophy and environmental geoscience, to law school, to coolest entrepreneur under 30, to educational innovator, and back to entrepreneur, Kyle Smitley has had quite a career so far. And if you'll allow me just a bit of editorializing, it sounds like just the kind of career that's possible when you have an education in the liberal arts and sciences like we have at DePauw. So here's the plan. Kyle's going to give her address. After that, Hillman intern and DePauw student Alex Biddle will have a short Q&A with Kyle, and then we'll open it up for Q&A with all you. So please think about what Kyle's saying and think about any questions you might have for her. But with that, I hope you'll join me in giving a warm welcome to Kyle Smitley.
Hi everyone, welcome to my organ recital. We are going to spend the next 60 minutes just going through the top organ hits. No, I'm just joking. How's everyone doing? Good? Okay, great. I'm Kyle. I'm absolutely honored to be here with you all tonight. Thank you so much to Jeff Dunn. Thank you so much to the Prindle Institute for having me this morning all day. Thank you to Eric Wielenberg, a professor I had all 4 years while at DePauw, who apparently did not effectively intervene in this education by highlighting my truly lackluster performance and all capacities of being a student while at DePauw. I feel pretty confident that I graduated with a GPA in the 2s, but yet I just still don't care enough to go check. Thank you also to the wonderful ladies of the Delta Gamma chapter on campus for the best dinner of my entire life. That was lovely. So right now I work at the 2 best elementary schools in Detroit, Detroit Achievement Academy and Detroit Prep, which I also founded. I write for Forbes, and I have been able to do really fun things like have lunch at the White House, go on Dr. Phil to present awards, and become super good friends with a really weird range of celebrities. It feels like just yesterday that I was a freshman at DePauw, but my husband texted me this morning and said that it was in fact 21 years ago. I will be looking into that math later. Anyway, now I have 2 small daughters, and so I read a lot of children's books. A book I often read to them is called Pleasant Field Mouse. In the story, Pleasant Field Mouse wants to host a picnic, and he wants all the people that he loves to be there. But he doesn't want anyone who would cause trouble to be there, specifically the owl and the fox. He spends a whole morning making dozens of signs that say, "Picnic on Tuesday, good people only." Then he hustles back home where he makes paper party hats, precious, and prepares a feast. While the field mouse is preparing for his picnic, all of his friends were walking by the signs he made. Mrs. Hedgehog read, "Good people only," and reflected that she was often worrying, often only about herself. She was certain that she wasn't invited. The frog read the sign and noted that he'd been eating a lot of very fat flies lately and said, "You cannot be good and be a glutton both," and he was sure he was not invited. The beaver remembered that just the day before, he chewed a white birch tree, accidentally causing the tree to fall on Mrs. Possum's schoolhouse. He was sure that he was not invited. The tortoise reflected on how he was so slow that he made others believe they've hurried so fast, so he spoils every party that he's invited to. How sad. He was sure he wasn't invited. The next day, Pleasant Field Mouse sat happily waiting. The story reads, Pleasant sat smiling firmly in case someone showed up, though nobody did. Sad, right? When I was at DePauw, I majored in philosophy and geology, and I minored in Spanish and chemistry. Yeah, I don't know either. In addition to my confusing academic choices, I was a DJ at WGRE, your sound alternative, every semester, and I was eventually the director of promotions. I was a student director at the Playwright Festival, and I was very proud to be a member of the Indiana Epsilon chapter of Pi Beta Phi. Uh-oh, really? Uh-oh, okay. I'm so excited right now. I'm from a really small farm and factory town called Defiance in Ohio, and DePauw was a tough learning curve for me. It was oftentimes really hard for me to be here. It felt sometimes like everyone was just a few turns ahead on whatever board game we were playing while we were here. People seemed to just get it, while I most definitely did not. I didn't get anything. But I felt really curious about all of it. And so, I stood no chance against the Introduction to Philosophy class I took my first semester on campus, taught by, again, Eric Wielenberg, a place where I didn't have to sit and mull about whether I was as cool as someone or as pretty as someone, but rather I got to sit for 45 minutes and try to see if I could make a real argument about whether or not I even exist. As someone who has since been to Burning Man, the mental escape and growth in the philosophy classes here at DePauw will go down in my books as the superior drug. Despite my abysmal grades, 4 years as a philosophy major here gave me a foundation for how I have approached every day since, every situation, every interaction with a person. This has grown into, now, how I lead, the principles that we hold on to as a school community, and my values as someone who's now shaping education policy nationwide. It left me chemically changed. I don't think I take things too seriously because, again, do we even exist? I mean, let's all calm down, you know? I'm able to deduce truth and reason and realness quicker than my peers who majored in, I don't know, like mechanical engineering or whatever normal people major in. I am also a bit of a stickler for morality now, for doing the right thing when no one is watching, for using my position and my privilege to hold a high bar for others. During my junior year at DePauw, I spent 9 months living in New Zealand, and because we have already heard about what a deadbeat student I was, I got very good at surfing while there. Did I fail 2 classes also? Yes, you can't win them all. After DePauw, I took a year off. My sorority sisters fled to the green pastures of Chicago or took jobs with Lily. My fellow philosophy majors did what they do, go to grad school. But no, none of that was for me. Everything I owned fit into 2 suitcases, and I threw those suitcases in the back of my car and I moved to beautiful San Diego, California. I surfed all day, every day, for a year. I was obsessed with getting a perfect LSAT score, and I applied my environmental science degree, major, to researching environmentally friendly kids' clothing lines for a local boutique just to have enough money to pay my rent. It was a magical dream year. The short version of what comes next is that after a year of doing the eco-friendly kids company research and after getting a full ride offer to law school because of my good LSAT scores, I founded a kids clothing line on the exact same day that I started law school. By the time I graduated from law school, the company was sold in stores all over the United States. It was a celebrity favorite, it was featured in tons of press, and a lot of it was just super fun for someone in their early 20s. We gave away over half of our profits, and we did fun things like fund full orphanages in Haiti, where I'd spent lots of time, or give entire schools of kids winter coats. Within the 3 years of law school, I'd been named by Inc. magazine as one of the coolest entrepreneurs under 30, Fortune magazine as a top 10 entrepreneur to watch. It was fun. I had a lot of fun. I was invited to the White House. I was invited to meet Warren Buffett. I was invited to meet Steve Jobs. No one wants to hear about those meetings, but I will tell you that DePauw gave me the skills I needed to excel in all of those environments. Now, I've said what I am about to say here at DePauw before, and I received very unhappy feedback. So if you are easily offended, could you please just hit me with some earmuffs? When I'm done, I'll give you a hand raise, okay? Okay, earmuffs. Okay, it's just us now. DePauw prepared me to win in the real world, okay? I wasn't as smart as the folks from the Ivies, but I was funnier. I was not as technically trained or as polished, but I could absolutely read the room and challenge someone to a drinking game that I was confident in my ability to make up on the spot. And I knew that I could both win the game and outdrink them. My Pi-Fis gave me a foundation of pop culture love and knowledge, and my fellow philosophy majors, exclusively independents, had kept me up on the best music and counterculture perspectives. Again, I did not have the pedigree, but I was nicer and I was more fun. I was absolutely lethal, and it was very easy for me to stand out, to get these invitations, to get an opportunity, and to get an open door. Okay, earmuffs off, we're back. Anyway, After the success and the highs, I realized that my brain, as mentioned, was just chemically changed, and I was unable to meaningfully enjoy any of that fun, beyond getting to brag to my parents and my friends about getting to go to Kim Kardashian's wedding. Not the one to Kanye, calm down. Beyond that, I didn't really care about any of it. I would see people working at an animal shelter or a free legal clinic, and I would be overcome with jealousy. I wanted that, a life of purpose, a life where you could work really, really hard, but you could see something in the world actually improve. Have you ever been in a scenario and suddenly had a moment that's like, wait, how did I get here? And is this where I want to be? It was like that. I also think that I had internalized the idea that good people were the successful ones. Wow, I can barely say that without laughing now. Guys, the good people are almost never the ones that hit the traditional benchmarks of success, okay? I know a lot of billionaires now, and they're almost never good people. Anyway, I looked around in these rooms, and it felt like Pleasant Field Mouse's picnic. Like, this is not what I wanted. The people in those rooms maybe did an occasional good act, or an act that created good results, but the overall net goodness rating just wasn't as high as I would have wanted it. I realized that I needed to make a change, that I was obligated to myself to make a change. So I figured I would sell my company and volunteer my time and energy at some school, ideally in Detroit. I chose Detroit because I was very, very, very sick of San Francisco, and I wanted to be back in the Midwest. And for me, personally, Chicago was not it. Detroit was magic to me, having visited a lot as a kid. Detroit still is magic to me. When I looked into schools in Detroit, though, wow, not great. I will spare you the long version, but there were entire zip codes where no schools had any child in any grade level who was on grade level in any content area. Just huge swaths of a city where entire families and kids were being failed by unflinching institutions in a city of adults who seemed to give up. It was like living in an ethics professor's theoretical question during a lecture. If you see up close the immense suffering and damage in an area, and you believe that you yourself has the ability to correct it in the short and in the long term, must you? I mean, when I tell you that I could almost feel the ghost of Immanuel Kant on my shoulder, or feel Peter Singer like shoving me. So obviously for me, the answer was yes, period. If I was living my values, I had to do something, because I could. I knew I could build something, I could hire great people, I could prove what's possible for kids in Detroit, where largely they currently still thought it was okay to blame kids, to blame poverty. I knew I was strong and smart enough, so I thought. So I packed up my house at the time in Napa Valley. I said goodbye to all of my friends in San Francisco, and I moved to the northwest side of Detroit, the best place ever. At the time I moved, the specific zip code I moved to was in the headlines as the most dangerous zip code in America. To this day, it was the kindest, most neighborly neighborhood I've ever lived in. My first school, Detroit Achievement Academy, opened in 2013 with 40 kindergarten and first graders. Almost immediately, people from all over the town, all over the city were blowing us up to open another school across town. I cannot believe it, but we gave in and we opened Detroit Prep, the second school, in 2016. I then got way better at saying no, and now I refuse requests to expand that come in daily from all over the country. Briefly, our schools are really special little places. We measure success like no other schools. We measure joy and belonging. But yet, we outperform all schools in our county on standardized tests at all grade levels, in all content areas, usually by double digits. Detroit Achievement Academy was featured by the New York Times when our students created and performed in part of a symphony with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. Detroit Prep was featured by Rolling Stone when our friend, the Queen of Pop, Madonna, made a huge matching gift as we worked to raise money to renovate an abandoned school building into our forever home. That building went on to be the first public school to ever be featured by Architectural Digest. Making national news is always a really fun part of any week, but in 2021, our students also made national history. At their 8th grade graduation, for the first time ever, a university issued a binding college acceptance for all of our graduates. The next year, it happened again, but the next year, the same university accepted all of our 8th grade students and their families into college, eliminating the concept of a first-generation college goer in our community. We've changed the outcomes for thousands of kids and families, just like I felt morally obligated to do. which has now had the effect of noticeably changing the overall education climate in the city of Detroit. When I think about my decision to pivot my life path towards founding the schools, I always come back to the ethics and morality of all of it, to the values that I hold dear. We will call this state ethically mature, Kyle. I could have followed a path towards exorbitant amounts of money, to clapping rooms, to endless parties with lots of talented rich people, lots of yeses, awards, so many awards, and all conventional signs of goodness, of success. But I personally felt a moral obligation to put my muscle towards getting an entire city full of kids a bit of justice. I don't think I was fully aware of the extent to which I would need to refine my values and sharpen my ethical toolkit in the course of opening the schools. But any place where an entire large population is actively being failed, there is likely a status quo that feels happy or protected or is benefiting from that state of being. Hot tip. When you ride in like Wyatt Earp, ready to hold everybody accountable, ready to flip on the lights and point out everybody to blame, you're going to need to hold onto your moral compass and convictions because you are going to make a lot of enemies very fast. So many folks needed me to fail, to be wrong, in order to preserve the lies they told themselves about how they were doing the absolute best that they could for kids and families in Detroit. Their egos could not see me succeed. A lot of folks did their very best to make sure our schools never opened, never prevailed, never ended up as a huge success. And the problem is, a lot of the people that were working hard against us, from before we opened until as long as 4 or 5 years into operation, were the types of people that would have been defined as good people. I watched people who stated externally that they were advocates for Detroit kids having better schools work tirelessly to make sure our schools never opened. And then I had drug dealers loan us our first $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 to open the schools in order to make sure that the neighborhood kids had a better option than they did when they were growing up. From the moment I touched down in Detroit, shouting about how we needed to stop failing our kids there, I was living in a fast-paced masterclass in morality and in evaluating goodness in people and in action. Thank God I was ready for it, right? I was primed. I had tools. Now, a decade after opening the schools in Detroit, ethically mature Kyle believes that when you're moving through the world ethically, and dare I say, in superior moral form, it might involve being perceived by the masses in parts of your life as bad, as challenging, as difficult. Now, ethically mature Kyle believes that we absolutely must proactively dissolve the lens of groupthink, of go along to get along, of the idea that being vanilla and appropriate all the time makes you good. Now, ethically mature Kyle pretty mercilessly cuts to the bone of pure character, trying to quickly get a sense of someone's goodness. But what is goodness? Well, in 330-ish BC, Aristotle seemed to think, okay, I could feel the professors all just tense up a little bit, like, oh God, is someone who just said she barely graduated going to stand up there and butcher thousands of years of actual ethical scholarship? And the answer is yes. Yes, I am. So Aristotle said that being a good person came from acquiring the exact right amount of things he called virtues, the traits that make a good person: courage, justice, truthfulness, temperance. Aristotle was also the mentor to Alexander the Great, who then spent his entire life trying to conquer and enslave the entire world. So I don't know, did Aristotle maybe have the goodness recipe wrong? Or was it the ingredients? Or did Alexander the Great just make the virtue of courage like his entire personality? As I've gotten older, I think questions of goodness and morality can feel maddening when contemplated only in the vacuum of academia, in the books of philosophers that oftentimes think that peak morality is donating to a charity or saving this imaginary drowning child from drowning. It makes me want to scream. Wake up, it's 2024. Leave your office and go outside and look at the world. To me, goodness starts with honesty to oneself and to others. It starts with avoiding harming others as a third rail for all decision-making. And it's no surprise, I tend to be a bit of a Peter Singer fan. I'm a utilitarian that looks at everyone as having what I feel should be an absolutely rabid obsession with improving the world for their broader community. I think that's what's required of us in 2024. Do I think the same obligation applies outside one's community or internationally? Of course. But when I'm making a moral to-do list for folks, I might put those after our more local needs, which are ever present, no matter where you live. Earlier this year, I was fortunate enough to be invited to Montgomery, Alabama, to sit in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s church, where he was a pastor, to sit with a man who was Dr. King's friend and was with him the night before he was killed. The magnitude of the experience is still enough to make me lose my breath. I got to learn so much from the people who hosted me, sitting in the pews that were shown in photos that I grew up looking at. As they shared story after story after story, I kept wondering, would Dr. King have considered himself a good person? Would he have gone to Pleasant Fieldmouse's picnic? Maybe, but I don't think so. Dr. King was difficult. He was tough. He pushed people. No, not just racist white people. He pushed people who said that they wanted change, but did nothing. He was really challenging to be around. He was disliked by people who considered themselves civil rights advocates. In the speech the night before he was killed, he was talking about how boycotting for janitors wasn't enough, and he started listing all of the products that people had to stop buying immediately. Coca-Cola, this cracker company. Truly, he was always speaking out about how the small moral transgressions add up to mass complacency. The masses will always tell us that some person is a villain or that only a certain way of behaving is acceptable. But as Nietzsche said, the opinions and beliefs of the masses are oftentimes calibrated to the lowest common vibration. Just joking, Nietzsche didn't say that. That was a guy who lived in his van at my old surfing beach. But I mean, is he wrong? Because 4 years of philosophy made me permanently curious, I listened to the guy, and I gotta say, I revisit it as a fundamental truth fairly often. I used to think, maybe DePauw Kyle, used to think that being good and righteous was synonymous with being nice and liked, right? Good people are precious. Ethically mature Kyle, though, now knows that that is so wrong. I know that with me being truly virtuous, it will mean that sometimes people perceive me to be difficult, combative, and challenging. Have you ever been scolded or reprimanded for something and you thought, wait, why was that the wrong thing to do? I've sat across the table from big, boring men who scolded me for my famously bad mouth, I'm doing okay in this talk, to later find out that they were embezzling money from their workplace. I regret every sliver of shame I have ever felt for the things that the masses wanted you to believe were synonymous with virtue, but are not. DePauw Kyle maybe thought that goodness was given, like external validation. Sort of like if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, does it make a sound? But in this case, if you do a good act and no one validates you, was it even good? No, that's the wrong way to think about it. No one will build the goodness inside of you. You've got to do the work yourself. You've got to go out there and take it. It's not when someone gives you a virtuous opportunity or a job you perceive to have intrinsic value or an award. For ethically mature Kyle, it's the opposite. When people reach out and ask to honor or feature me in any way, I usually say no. Because I know that if entire groups of people are agreeing that I'm a good person to whom to give some vanilla award, I'm not speaking up or disrupting the oftentimes deeply oppressive or racist or misogynistic classist status quo enough. Like, if whole groups of people like me and enjoy my company, I feel worried that I have taken my foot off the gas pedal of my favorite virtue, of radical candor, which according to my husband and my closest friends, can often present as confrontation-seeking. So, would I have gone to Pleasant Fieldmouse's picnic? It depends. Depends on when you'd ask me. Today? Yeah, I'm there and I brought my Bluetooth speaker. But are there chunks of my life where I would have said that speaking up, standing up for folks, nudging others for progress or change made me wonder if maybe I was actually a bad guy in the movie of life? Yeah, I really got the ick from so many people that were held up as exemplars, like as early as childhood, through high school, for sure in college, and beyond. So I wondered, maybe I'm the villain. I'll end with one quick last story. This summer, in a single day, I had breakfast with a gang leader, lunch with the single highest elected official in my city, and dinner with a group of mom friends. Just with the titles I gave you, you might have some presumption of goodness levels, right? No. As I told you earlier, goodness doesn't live in a title. At dinner with my friends, I glazed over because they just talked about how annoying their mother-in-law was for getting something ugly for their kids to wear, or drama about getting the wrong paint for their mansion. At lunch, the elected official went back on something that they'd previously given their word on, canceling a program a year short in a way that would leave hundreds of kids and families scrambling. The initiative wasn't going to get any press attention, and he wanted that, so he wanted to divert the resources to something that would. It was a decision that was made in the dark of night, and only I would know about it. At breakfast, the gang leader wanted to talk about their schedule and plans for a back-to-school event, where he would get all of the local barbers, he had some persuasion ability, to donate a day to cut kids' hair to get ready for school. We were brainstorming on an updated sense of what our actual community need was. I had some extra backpacks for all kids in the community, extra from my school, and we had lots of other resources that I had committed to sharing. We made a really robust plan with dates and ways that we were going to get the word out. When thinking about Pleasant Fieldmouse's picnic, though, the only person that wouldn't have come would probably be the gang leader, right? But wow, the net goodness for that day or week, month, year, from me, the gang leader wins, and it's not even close. In the coming years of your life, you're going to be sort of forever curating your own personal picnic, where you get to decide the type of person you want to be and who you want to be in your life. My challenge to you is that you choose your values, stick to them, and ignore whatever the masses tell you to do. Good luck.
That was great. Thanks very much. I'm going to ask Alex Biddle. Where is Alex?
He might be in the back. Yep.
Oh, he's going to emerge from... That was awesome. That was awesome. Yes, welcome Alex Biddle, DePauw senior and Hillman intern at the Pringle Institute. Him and Kyle are going to have a discussion here, and then we're going to open it up to all of you. And I think we're going to sit on the edge of the stage. Is that what we decided?
Yeah, cool.
All right, let's do it.
There were no other chairs, so we're coming close.
All right, great to see you all. Can we please get another round of applause for Kyle? That was such a great talk. Definitely a lot of topics to touch on today, and I think that we will, and we'll get this started off with the Q&A together, and then we'll transition to an audience Q&A. So first thing I was curious about is that you've had clearly values change a lot throughout your life, and I was curious how you would say your values have changed from when you're an entrepreneur to now. So like, what do you know now that as ethically mature Kyle?
Man, I'm not sure about values. I would say that when I think about entrepreneur Kyle, I think a lot about someone who was always like looking, like if I were driving, I'm always checking my mirrors and I'm looking in my rearview mirror and I'm very acutely aware of what other people are doing. It was part of what burnt me out. I was just constantly sort of like, well, this person's doing this and I feel jealous and I feel vindictive and I'm going to do that thing or better. And now as like a more values-driven person, like I truly could not care less what anyone else is doing. I pay attention to no one's success. And now ethically mature Kyle, like very truly, like roots for other people's success, even if there could potentially be perceived as like a competitor or whatever. And like, of course, the great spoiler of that is like when you stop even like perceiving other people or what they're doing or their work or their progress, like you sort of immediately start outpacing them. And so that's probably the biggest change that I'm grateful for.
Yeah, just like focusing more on yourself and what you can do. Yeah, that's great. And sort of in a similar vein to that, I mean, do you have any advice that you would give to someone who's looking to focus more on themselves or is looking to try to become a good person, maybe get a spot at that picnic?
Yeah, man. Like how to be a better person?
Yeah. What would you recommend
Yeah.
to focus on yourself and try to become a better person?
I don't know, a couple things. Like, first of all, just do whatever you want all the time. Have more fun, right? Like, have more fun. If you, like, want to go to a movie, go to a movie. If you want to, like, go to dinner by yourself, go to dinner by yourself. Like, stop paying attention to, like, what is normal and, like, do whatever you feel like doing. Maybe it's because I'm almost 40, but that's, like, a major part of my identity now is, like, doing whatever I want all the time. That would be something. And I think the biggest thing, I have 2 young daughters now, and so the thing that I always am obsessing about lately is how I get them into communities that are different from their own, because I think that like getting out of like any potential risk of a bubble, and just truly, truly, truly getting into another community where you are like at the bottom of the hierarchy and you're in nothing but like complete service, is like my absolute advice. I always tell my kids that after they graduate from high school, they have to, before they go to college, to earn the right of going to college, they have to work at a Taco Bell for a year. They're 5 and 8, so they don't know what Taco Bell is yet. But I like keep hoping to internalize it, because that to me truly is like how you will like get a better sense of like the entire world and how lucky you are to like exist in so many different parts of it.
Yeah.
Work at Taco Bell is, I think, the answer.
Great point. And I'm curious if you would say maybe the same thing or something different if you could talk to your old DePauw self.
Like what I would say to DePauw Kyle?
Yeah. What would your advice be?
My gosh. I think it would be like, hey, you're gonna realize you're like kind of like a waste of space here, but like let yourself off the hook for it. This is what you should be doing right now. Like party, okay, keep partying, baby girl, like go miss class. Okay, no, for sure, like keep phoning in those essays. Great, you're gonna regret it for a little bit, but then you'll be really happy because you're gonna wake up and you're gonna be 40 with 2 kids and you're gonna be like, man, those were the good years. Right? You have plenty of time to be like a real person. It's not in college, just be a disaster.
So maybe I won't do my studying tonight.
No.
Thank you. Yeah. Papers can wait, right? Well, maybe to a little bit of the younger group. I know there's high schoolers here as well. Well, yeah, they're here, and they. And I bet they would
Study
love to
more.
hear from you. So, like maybe for picking a college to go to or deciding what they want to do in college.
When you're deciding where to go to college, look for where you feel the most at ease. When you're on a tour, wherever you're not holding your breath and you're nervous and you feel uncomfortable, it's just like the place where you think that maybe you could get as close as possible to like being your true self, your aspirational self, your true self, whatever. For me, I remember I was accepted to Harvard, DePauw, and like Ohio State. It's like a range, right? And I remember thinking like they're all 3 very, very different. And DePauw had the perfect balance for me. I knew that if I wanted to like be an extremely smart academic person, that I could be, and to be clear, like the like be a disaster, like that was the lane I chose. But there are people that I graduated with that I met in philosophy classes that are now influencing like global economic policy, like legit people who like are doing incredible filmmakers, like incredible work. And so I think like for me, DePauw hit that balance. And so I think also remembering that like, obviously this is my perspective and so I'm biased, but there's so much more than like just like a technical training, that I truly think that like learning how to show up as a human being in the world is really important. So find a place that like lets you do cool things like DJ for the radio station at 3 a.m. or whatever, which is I think one of the things that like made me the person who I am.
Yeah, I feel like DePauw, plug real quick, I feel like DePauw is great for that. Get a lot inside and outside of the classroom. So one thing you talked about pivoting a little bit is the importance of drowning out groupthink and what other people are doing, not just trying to go along to get along. And I was curious if you have anything you've done to do that in your own life. It must be hard to drown out what everyone else around you is thinking.
I think when I think about like the actual tools I have to drown out groupthink, I think I do have like a handful of people who are really nice guardrails for me. They're people who push me in one way or the other, and it helps me get a sense of like, am I being buck wild when I'm thinking about this idea or this decision or a perspective? Smart people who I really trust, and I bounce ideas off like a selective number of people. I also firmly believe in, you guys are too young to remember when Beyonce just like dropped an album and she didn't do any press for it in advance, but I believe that like all work should be like that. I get tired of the people who are like, cool thing coming soon, stay tuned, because it gives your brain the same sort of like dopamine hit as actually, there's science, from someone who has no idea what I'm talking about, but there's science. That's like your brain gets the same dopamine hit from getting all of that groupthink validation for like something coming soon as it does like actually doing the work. So I personally forever have had like a firm policy that I'm just going to do the thing. Just do the thing. Don't talk to 25 people about it and get their feedback, like just do the thing. And so I catch myself a lot if it feels like I'm trying to get like groupthink validation on an idea to like give me enough gas to like actually do it. I find myself being like, no, if this is your idea, you need to like do the thing and tell them after. That makes sense?
Yeah, that's great. And on this topic of doing the thing, I mean, you've clearly done so many things. You were an entrepreneur and you founded 2 schools. And one thing you mentioned in your talk, and I think could be relevant to a lot of us here, is that you just had a sort of frustration with some classrooms where you're just learning about things and never actually applying it and just keeping things in the classroom. I'm curious what you think about what has helped you, take that step and take the skills you've learned at DePauw into the real world and actually make a difference.
Yeah, I think like, I can't think of a time where I ever actually had the like confidence to like make like a super aware choice to do that. I think in a lot of different scenarios, especially when you're like building a startup or you're in a startup environment, you sort of get like shoved into it, and then you sort of just like get shoved off a cliff and you realize like, oh my God, I'm flying. And then that sort of gives you the confidence to like continue to jump off the cliffs and like continue to take risks. And when I graduated from DePauw, if someone would have asked me that question, like, what did DePauw give you? Or like, what sort of skills I would have said nothing, absolutely nothing. They gave me a philosophy major, and why? Who let me do that? What human being let me do that? And so it wasn't until much later where I was like, why am I lapping these people, right? These people like went to the Ivies, like, why am I just crushing them? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's all DePauw-based skills. In like, sure, some academics, like the fact that I could hang with like some, like not the smartest people, but like the upper 25% smart level people, like that was cool. And so I think like that hybrid of experience like paid off. I would say like I started to notice it like 5 years out, and I was like, okay, DePauw, got it.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm feeling confident myself because of that, but. So, you're going into these conversations with, like, when you're trying to start schools or vouch for yourself and vouch for what you believe in, you have to be ready to disagree with people. And those conversations can be very difficult. How do you go about doing that?
It's so hard. Like, I'm a good Midwestern girl, right? Like, the idea of, like, being disagreeable to some man in a suit, like, that's not how I was raised, right? Not a chance. And so it took me a long time. It took me a long time of, like, being told, like, oh, gosh, you're gonna, like, absolutely tank. You're not the right person for kids, like, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, gosh, I feel sad. I feel so, and like I said, I regret every moment of feeling sad. I regret every moment of, like, letting another human being, like, have any ability to control, like, my reaction or how I feel. Like, that, you don't waste your time. But it took me a while. And I think, like, it was a matter of, like, getting back to like the logic of philosophy, or like a simple sorority girls pro-con list of like, am I bad at this? Can I do it? No. What evidence do I have that would tell me that like I could be good at this, and this could be a successful thing, and this could be right for kids? I'm like, well, this family and this kid and this kid and this kid in that school, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just like in the words of Frozen 2, like just do the next right thing. Right? Like one step at a time. You don't always have to know. Or 2 young daughters, guys, like Frozen 2 is in grade. But like, I love that line, right? Because it's like, you don't always have to have like, I think DePauw does this to us, right? Like, you have to know what like 100 yards down the path looks like. Like, you have to know where are you going? Like, you don't. Like, you should know what the next right step is, and just like take that next right step. And then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. Like, you don't have to have it all figured out.
Yeah, so just like feeling confident in taking action even when you're maybe still feeling uncertain about things. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. So maybe another question relevant to different audiences in the group is that everyone's trying to start businesses here. Well, maybe. I think a lot of people are probably trying to start businesses here. Let's go with it.
Okay.
What advice would you have to someone trying to incorporate ethics into their business practice?
Oh my gosh. Okay, it's been a minute since I've given proper business advice. Build it into the foundation of how you show up. Action speaks louder than words. Like, don't talk about it, don't put it in have built several successful things. I manage zillions of dollars in resources. I've never made a proper business plan, ever. So don't obsess too much about like your written word and like the values that you are writing in paper. Like, just start doing. So it's like ethics. It's like, I don't know, what are your ethics? You don't want to employ people in like unsafe environments. Okay, then don't. You want to give money away, then do. How much money do you have? No, you have $10 in profit. Give away $10. Like, just do it. Don't look to other people to get validation on like a concept or an idea. Like, whatever feels right for whatever your business is.
Yeah, so just tying back into that theme of having your own value system, being confident in yourself. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I think we've talked about a lot here. I think we're ready to transition to getting some audience feedback. Yeah?
For sure.
All right. Oh, I mean, so eager, yeah.
So my question is we talked a lot about.
Did you?
What's that? Oh yeah, I have to. No. We talked about like peers, like socializing with peers, having that spark, going out and having fun. What about like when you were getting interviewed by Forbes or going to the White House? Like did you change at all?
No, I'm the same. I don't have the ability to change. This, whatever you're getting right now, is like what Obama got. It's what Jobs got. This whole, like, I don't have the ability to like censor. I'm like watching my language now because I like do not want to anger anyone. But other than that, like, I don't have the ability to censor. Yeah, no, it's the same thing. It's like a true curiosity for like whatever it is. And so, like, writing for Forbes actually is a really good example. So two billionaires are sitting next to each other, right? And I am being myself. Question. And Steve Forbes is one of them. And he's like, do you want to write for Forbes? I was like, yeah. And then I wrote my first few pieces, and it was very clear, my first two pieces, and it was clear that if the pieces did well, that I'd be able to write about whatever I wanted. But I did really cool things. Like, I went to this construction site that was powered by high schoolers, and it's like kind of just like a job training. It's in Louisiana, in New Orleans. And so I just like wrote about that because I'm like naturally curious, because I like am social. I am genuinely wanting to know so things like that sort of led to the success. Yeah, did I answer your question? You're basically like, did you filter yourself in any of these important things? And the answer is absolutely not. The same thing that you're getting now. Yeah.
And I will say, if anyone doesn't want to be shouting, I'm happy to bring you a mic, okay?
I just like don't subscribe to that value system. I truly think that people that are obsessed with like achieving, moving up in money, I'm like, you're a little dumb, is truly how I think. It's like the honest to God truth. Like, if I'm in a room and someone's like bragging to me about their like earthly possessions and their assets, I'm like, bless you. You don't get it. Like, you're missing it. Like, you're so boring, right? Like, I have nothing, I can't even ask you about anything. Like, I don't care about your boat, right? And so I truly like love my job. Like, I love, like, people have tried to pull me out of my role a million times. I love my job. I love working in schools. It is the best job, like best job. I love being a public servant. It like brings me so much joy. I truly like do not look at, I mean, I think like the caveat, if I were like really being like high integrity in my answer too, is like I get to do some of the stuff that could be like coveted if you were working in a traditional like for-profit business. Like I write for Forbes, like that's a cool, with the mic? That's like a cool thing that I get to do. So I get that like hit of like a shiny thing is like what I call it. Like having a shiny thing is nice once in a while. So I do get a little bit of that. I do get a lot of celebrity support. I do get to go to fun things. So there is a little bit of that like I'm working through with my own moral dilemma, like why I like that so much. I'm on a journey. Everyone's on a journey. Don't judge me. And so yeah, I love being a public servant. Working in public service is it for me.
All right, we had a hand back here. I'll hand it over.
Larry.
Hi, Kyle. I'm actually going to ask this because, we're both the same class.
Ew.
And when we were in school, Facebook came out. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was like, so I know it's dating. You guys are like, oh my God.
No, I know.
Now we have
already told people.
Instagram, YouTube. We were like literally there at the inception of Facebook.
Yeah.
So my question, I'm providing that as context for my question, and that's more so for them. What advice would you have navigating ethics now with this world of social media? I mean, we didn't go through a lot of it. You think about it. We went through maybe, 2 years, Facebook, something like that. So like navigating the world of social media now for a lot of these students is something that you and I didn't really have to go through while we were
Yeah.
here at DePauw. So what advice would you give to them as they're operating ethically in that space?
Yeah, it's so hard because I'm the equivalent of like a boomer for you guys. And so I would just say, like, if you were my kids, I would say, like, you don't know this, but your brain just like isn't fully formed yet. And there's so much, like, you couldn't tell, like, I'm pretty confident in my choices. I've done it. I've like done things. I'm like pretty secure. And Instagram even gets me sometimes. Like, I can't imagine if I had that malleable brain that you have, like, it would have like such an adverse impact. And so I don't know how kids these days like protect themselves against that, or like what sort of things. I know that if I were in college, I would want someone to tell me to get off Instagram. I would want someone to who loves me to intervene. I know that I will beg my children, I will pay them any amount of money to not get social media and just to microdose real life as much as possible. The world is such a beautiful place. Just go sit on a beach for 4 hours with no phone. And your brain, it's gonna be so good for your brain. You're gonna be such good people. But it's you all looking at me like I'm a boomer. I get it, but that is what my answer would be. It would be get off social media. Get I just bought one of those light phones. It's a glorified dumb phone that doesn't have anything other than the ability to make phone calls and text. And so it's just I want to microdose real life. Real life is a pretty beautiful thing, and your friendships are real, and just really monitor your social media. I'm a boomer, sorry.
Hi, you mentioned a just do it attitude, utilitarianism, go to parties, be crazy, and all these great things you've done here at DePauw and in life. But specifically, I've kept touching back to a value system. How did you build that, and what kept you accountable to it personally, and with your?
Yeah, shame is such a motivator, right? Shame. You make mistakes. You don't feel good about it. That's okay. Do better. You're not a villain. That didn't define you. You made a really stupid choice. You hurt someone's feelings. You missed Christmas because you drank too much and you were in the hospital. It's okay. Move forward. I don't drink anymore. Spoiler alert. It's okay. Shame is a motivator, and I think the quicker you learn to be that was a choice, okay, would I do it again? Yes or no, and then just move and learn from it. I would say that again, college Kyle and ethically mature Kyle are different because that person didn't have those same values, and it took a long time of having reactions to other people and being I don't like you, why? Oh, because you're this. Okay, or I really like you, why? Oh, because you're this. Oh, I'm a better person when I'm with you. Oh, I like what we talk about. And just being as aware as possible about what gives you strength and what makes your heart feel really happy, and then what feels like it's kind of sucking the wind out of you. Shame, also.
Coming on over.
I don't even understand.
Oh.
Hi again. I was going to ask, as someone who's done a lot of really incredible work in the field of education, what's your advice to someone who wants to go into education but is kind of deterred by the different variables that educators face nowadays?
Go into education. Substitute teach at a weird place. Substitute teach at a school that really needs a substitute teacher. Push your own thinking. Everybody has an opinion on schools just because they went to kindergarten. Can you imagine if everybody's opinion about what schools should or shouldn't be, or what an industry should or shouldn't be, was based on I love a McDonald's Diet Coke. Can you imagine if I thought I knew how to run a McDonald's from that? But that's how it is with schools. And so I would say, like, commonly I hear a lot of like misconceptions that are misconceptions for my school. Of course, we're like glorious, beautiful, special places. But even, and I'm in a lot of schools, even when I'm in like just objectively bad school, a lot of those misconceptions are still false there. And so I would say if you're even remotely interested in education, like start substitute teaching and like get in there because you're gonna like love it. It's so great. Yeah. Yep. Whatever you do not go like get a master's in education and like, so sorry. Do not get a master's in education unless you're like actively teaching and you're trying to get your master's then. Like don't get a PhD in education studies and write books telling people how to teach the children if you only did it for 1 year. We don't want to hear from you. We don't want to hear from you.
Hi, could you just talk a little bit more about your experience with law school and how you think that helped you in the long run?
Oh my gosh, I forgot to talk about law school. Okay, yeah, actually, my law school story is, I'm gonna try to make it short, but it's long. Okay, so I started law school, started law school, and I said in the story when I graduated. That wasn't the truth. When I walked across the stage and thought I graduated, okay? And then 6 years later, my husband was like, where's your law school diploma? And I was like, I don't know. So I emailed my law school and I said, do I get a diploma, or like, how do I prove I graduated from law school? And they were like, oh my gosh, funny story, you didn't. And I was like, what? I walked across the stage, you called my name, I had a cap and gown, like I had everything, or hood. And they were like, yeah, it was a clerical error. So I did my first year at Toledo, I got sick of being in the Midwest, I wanted to go run my startup in San Francisco. I did my second year in San Francisco. I wanted to transfer to San Francisco, but by then I was on the cover of magazines, so my current law school said, you're not transferring, we get you. So I had to transfer back to my original college. One of the classes I took it was 2 credit hours. They required it to be 3. So they said, you're actually 1 class short. And so I ended up having to, as a mother of 2, drive an hour twice a week and take Constitutional Law 2, 11 years after I took Constitutional Law 1, because I was so stubborn that I was not going to not get that JD after I had to like apply so the Bar Association could lift this 8-year rule. It was a disaster. Anyway, are you asking like, did I like it? Okay, I loved it. You should go to law school. Everyone should go to law school. You should try to get full ride to law school because law school is expensive. But 3 years in law school is like a privilege. I consider it a like comparable privilege with having like 4 years of majoring in geology and philosophy and never having any plans to like do anything with it. I always knew I didn't want to be a lawyer, but it is a beautiful thing to understand the law because with that comes a lot of privilege to help keep a lot of people that I love and know safe. So I talk a lot with like our kids and families about like 4th and 5th Amendment rights. I talk a lot about it with like our local precincts as it relates to our kids. And so I think like I loved law school. Law school was really cool. It was as cool as like philosophy, geology, like all of that. It was a wonderful, if anyone wants to go to law school, it's great. Finish in 3 years though.
So you talked about speakers who didn't necessarily agree with you. How would you face like the politicians who are making laws trying to undermine what you're doing?
I'm really nice, always. I always just think like, they just don't know. I don't start with like, I like always have a presumption of like, they must not know, right? Like if there are people making laws, which there are, that would adversely impact like my school kids and stuff like that, and like our ability to be successful, I always just like invite them in. I'm always like, please come for a visit, please come for a visit, please come look. It usually gets pretty disheartening from there. It usually is just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We love it here. We would never want to do anything that harmed you. However, I have a donor obligation. I'm bought and paid for. It's caucus position. Caucus position says we have to. And so I think the thing that I'm fairly good at is just like not, like nuance needs to like get brought back and like be back alive. And I think like you disagree with me on one micro topic, and so therefore like you're canceled and so is everybody else that like knows you. It's just like, oh my gosh, we're missing it. We're missing the ability to like actually create a lot of change. And so I am pretty close friends with people who I like fundamentally like disagree with, on so many different things because we agree on certain things and I'm like trying to make sure that I like bring them around. The actual like practical impact is that those people are softer on some things. So like, for example, like on ways that they could like make things really, really hard for me or my kids or ways to operate, instead of like throwing their weight behind it, they just back off. Or they make it easier or softer, or they lay off on a part of it. Yeah, I always just start with like, they must not understand, and I like seek to understand before I like go completely nuclear.
Hello. All right. Have you ever like personally like felt discouraged or like questioned or like moral values throughout your endeavors, and if so, like how did you like overcome them?
Oh my gosh, do I give the impression that like maybe I didn't? Because that would have failed you. Yeah, I mean like I'm a warm-blooded human being. I would say I like quietly cry in the shower like once a month, right? Who among us? Who among us? Yeah, I feel discouraged all the time. As a leader, it's impossible to like make decisions and like not feel constantly like, God, am I getting it wrong? Or am I like missing it? Are we okay on time, Jeff? Okay, great. I feel discouraged all the time. And you know what I don't do? I don't gaslight myself out of feeling discouraged. I'm not around toxic positivity people either. I am like, I lean into it. I'm like, I'm gonna cry in the shower, I'm gonna eat ice cream, and I'm gonna watch Bravo, Real Housewives. Like, we are full tilt. Like, we're full tilt into the sads. And I like say like, okay, great, stomp around, like scowl around, like I'll walk my dog scowling. And then I just like get it out of my system and I keep it moving. But like, I don't like gaslight myself out of being like mad or sad. I like am fully in it. And then you just take it one step at a time, the next right step. You got
All right,
this. You got this.
we'll take 2 more questions real quick. Coming down.
Never. Never. When I walked away, I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy what took me so long. Yeah. We got a better valuation later, so I was like, thank goodness I did wait. And to be clear, when I sold my company, I gave away $9 million, which was most of it. Because I don't want money and I don't like money. I think money makes you a broken person. Personal opinion. Sorry if you have money. Personal opinion, and it was wonderful. I got to give $2 million to the organization that fights hunger in my hometown. Like I got to make sure kids like me didn't ever feel hungry again. Like that stuff is like, again, superior drug. So no, I'd never even, was like, bye, wow, I don't feel stressed anymore. Now I feel stressed all the time because I run a bigger organization, but for a while I wasn't as stressed.
How did you navigate law school and like having to work? Like how did you find energy to get to both of these? Because obviously law school is really hard.
Yeah, it's grind time. You gotta just grind. Like don't be soft, it's not playtime. It's not friendship time. It's not watch movie time. You have to work all the time. If you want to build something, like go for it. Don't half blanket, like go for it. Like people still to this day try to make references to like any pop culture thing at all. A movie, a show during like my startup building phase, I have no clue. Because all I did was be in law school, badly, and build a startup. It doesn't need to be your whole personality forever, but like work for it. If you want something, every single second of your day, you need to be thinking about it. Every second of your day, you're working at it. If you think for any second that like the fish are gonna jump in the boat, or you have a perception that like your friend's company, like the fish just jumped in the boat, it's an incorrect perception, I promise. They didn't. Their dad put them in the boat, or their friend put them in the boat, or they worked really, really, really hard to put them in the boat, and they're lying to you, saying like, oh my God, they just jumped in, I didn't even try. No, try. Like, go for it. People often are like, oh, everything you touched me, like, turns to gold. And I'm like, what? Like, I went out there and I found every single scrap of gold. I stayed up all night melting it, like, and then when you woke up, it was golden, right? But like, you have the perception that it turned to gold, so like, no, it's exclusively hard work.
Well, thanks so much. This has been really, really great. I want to first say, have us all thank Alex for moderating. And most of all, once again, join me in thanking Kyle for coming back, and a really, really great evening. Thanks, Kyle.